Rural Americans deserve access to the best of what our nation has to offer, especially healthcare. Across every state and every community, America's rural hospitals are the first line of defense, protecting our families, neighbors, and loved ones. No matter where you live, hospital care doesn't clock out. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Each year, America's over 5,000 hospitals care for millions of patients, providing 24/7 emergency care, delivering babies, cancer treatments, and other life-saving care that patients rely on. Behind every one of those patients are doctors, nurses, and caregivers working tirelessly to keep people healthy and safe. Hospitals are our community's lifelines. They employ our neighbors and keep our families healthy. But now, some in Congress are threatening access to care. Tell Congress, protect patient care to keep America strong. Don't cut rural health care.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
We are back, folks. This is the More Money Show, and thank you so much for carving out some time on your Saturday afternoon to listen. We're on every Saturday afternoon on WABC. By the way, the #1 talk radio station in these United States, so it's a great privilege and honor that John Catsimatidis has given me. John, of course, is the great owner of this station, and has turned it into the #1 talk radio station. And so we're on from 1 to 3, and we love to hear from you. I've always said I'm not the smartest radio talk show host, but I'm very proud I have some of the smartest listeners. So we want to hear from you about what you think about all the stuff we've been discussing about. And one of the things I want to ask you about is this $16 trillion. Sorry, I misspoke. $16 trillion that was stolen from the American public by the climate change industrial complex, and they have nothing to show for it. It is a scandal of massive proportion. Some of these people should be put in jail. Think of what a great world we would have today. We have a great world, but how much greater it would be if we had $16 trillion, if we could find a cure for cancer and heart disease, which we could do with more money, if we could improve our schools, if we could give every single child in America a voucher for, say, $15,000, $20,000 to go to the best school they can possibly go to, so we can educate our kids, so we can maintain our global leadership. Think about if we could, in terms of providing clean water for every little African tribe in America that still doesn't have it. There's still 1 billion people around the world that don't have access to basic electricity. I mean, this is the year 2026, and still 1 billion people are in energy poverty. Well, it's not hard to bring energy to people, and yet the climate change people kept energy out of these communities, kept them poor. And so I could go on and on with the things that we could have done. With 1/10 of that money, we would have a cure for cancer today, and we could save literally millions of lives. So I'm angry, very angry about how much money has been stolen by these people who got rich. And by the way, Al Gore and others who talked about this inconvenient truth. The inconvenient truth, Al Gore, is you and your friends stole this money from the American people. Okay, do we have EJ Antoni on, Mr. Producer? EJ, are you there?
Yes, Steve. Great to be with you. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, you are a superstar. Thank you. You all know EJ Antoni. He is the chief economist at the Heritage Foundation. He is also one of the economic wizards at a group that I run called Unleash Prosperity. And by the way, if you are not getting the Unleash Prosperity hotline, why the hell not? I mean, come on, it's free. It costs nothing. It's something I know my friends in the White House read. I know it's many of the congressmen and senators are reading it every morning. I know a lot of CEOs of major companies that read it. So you should be reading it too. You can read it in 5 minutes. It's a short read, but you'll be the smartest person in the room, I promise, when politics and the economy come up, and EJ is a major contributor to that. So, EJ, a lot to talk to you about today. I want to start with what happened yesterday before the tariff announcement came out, which was we got a new report on the economic growth rate of the country at the end of the fourth quarter, which ended at the end of December of last year. And it was a surprisingly, it was a disappointing report. I mean, the growth rate, I think, was 1.5%. We were thinking we would get, 3 or 4 or 5%, but you looked at the details of that report and you're telling me the news is better than the headline number.
I think so, Steve. And part of that has to do with just the crazy way we calculate GDP, courtesy of the framework that John Maynard Keynes gave us so many decades ago, really 100 years ago. And that is we include government purchases. So the problem here is that what we saw under
So in other words,
Biden,
hold on. So when the government purchases more things and it gets bigger, then we say the GDP is bigger.
That's exactly right, Steve. And this is illustrated, I think, very well when Keynes talked about if the government were to spend money, let's say paving a road, so they buy the concrete or the asphalt, but then after they pave this road, they go in and they tear it all up. Guess what? You would actually count that as productive activity, both when they were building it and then when they were paying to tear that road up as well. And Keynes thought that this would employ people and it would add to the economy. But I think even a child could see that you haven't actually created anything in that process. Sure, you've wasted. And
by the way, EJ, you're making a very important point here. I mean, it is an actual fact that during the Great Depression, there were programs where we burned the crops in the field so we could raise the price of food so that farmers would have more money.
Right, exactly, Steve. I mean, this was just so unbelievably obscene. But the reason why I think all of this is important background is the fact that if we look at this is all adjusted for inflation, so it's in real terms. If we look at the purchases by the federal government in the fourth quarter, they fell 16.6% at an annualized rate. For context,
well, that's good news. That's good news.
Exactly. And for context, you have to go all the way back to 1972 to find a time when federal government purchases declined by that much. So this was not unprecedented, but it's,
yeah. Does that even include, because I know when we had the Cold War ended, we had a dramatic reduction in defense spending in the mid 90s, but that's a big reduction, 16% in one quarter. So that's good news.
Absolutely. And to your point, Steve, you're absolutely right. After the Cold War ends, you pretty consistently see for most of the 90s, most quarters, purchases by the federal government are actually negative. So you're seeing that relatively steady decline.
This is important because we also had a booming stock market in the mid 90s. We had a very strong economy as the government shrank.
Rural Americans deserve access to the best of what our nation has to offer, especially healthcare. Across every state and every community, America's rural hospitals are the first line of defense, protecting our families, neighbors, and loved ones. No matter where you live, hospital care doesn't clock out. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Each year, America's over 5,000 hospitals care for millions of patients, providing 24/7 emergency care, delivering babies, cancer treatments, and other life-saving care that patients rely on. Behind every one of those patients are doctors, nurses, and caregivers working tirelessly to keep people healthy and safe. Hospitals are our community's lifelines. They employ our neighbors and keep our families healthy. But now, some in Congress are threatening access to care. Tell Congress, protect patient care to keep America strong. Don't cut rural health care.
Rural Americans deserve access to the best our nation has to offer, especially when it comes to healthcare. Across every state and every community, America's rural hospitals are the first line of defense, protecting our families, neighbors, and loved ones. No matter where you live, hospital care doesn't clock out. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Each year, America's over 5,000 hospitals care for millions of patients, providing 24/7 emergency care, delivering babies, cancer cancer treatments, and other life-saving care that patients rely on. Behind every one of those patients are doctors, nurses, and caregivers working tirelessly to keep people healthy and safe. Hospitals are our community's lifelines. They employ our neighbors and keep our families' health. But now, some in Congress are threatening access to care. Tell Congress, protect patient care to keep America strong. Don't cut rural health care. Rural Americans deserve access to the best our nation has to offer, especially when it comes to health care. Across every state and every community, America's rural hospitals are the first line of defense, protecting our families, neighbors, and loved ones. No matter where you live, hospital care doesn't clock out. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Each year, America's over 5,000 hospitals care for millions of patients, providing 24/7 emergency care, delivering babies, cancer treatments, and other life-saving care that patients rely on. Behind every one of those patients are doctors, nurses, and caregivers working tirelessly to keep people healthy and safe. Hospitals are our community's lifelines. They employ our neighbors and keep our families' health. But now, some in Congress are threatening access to care. Tell Congress, protect patient care to keep America strong. Don't cut rural health care.
LifeLock, how can I help?
The IRS said I filed my return,
but I haven't.
1 in 4 tax-paying Americans has paid the price of identity fraud.
What do I do?
My refund, though.
I'm freaking out.
Don't worry, I can fix this.
LifeLock fixes identity theft guaranteed and gets your money back with up to $3 million in coverage.
I'm so relieved.
No problem. I'll be with you every step of the way.
1 in 4 was a fraud-paying American. Not anymore. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
Exactly. So this is all really important, I think, when we look at this GDP report, because that huge drawdown in federal spending meant overall government purchases fell more than 5%. And again, because that's included in the calculation for GDP, it took 0.9 of a percentage point off the headline number. So when we look at that headline number of only 1.4%, you have to realize the private part of the economy grew by that 1.4 plus another 0.9. So you're really looking at 2.3%, which is not that terrible.
Yeah. And so, it's fine. I mean, I would like to see the government growing a lot faster. I mean, the economy growing faster than that. The other thing that you pointed out, which I found fascinating, which is that the most important component to me, EJ, and correct me if I'm wrong, is how much are businesses investing in the future? Because, business investment to me is the seed corn of a growing economy. And you were telling me there are very strong investment numbers by businesses in this report.
But that's exactly right, Steve. You saw a 3.8% growth there. That's great, and I think it's especially good because part of the investment number is residential, right? And so you want to take that out because, well, it's good to build houses and we want more dwelling units so that we can bring down the cost of housing and make it more affordable. I understand all that, but in terms of economic growth, what we're really concerned about is non-residential investment. And once again, there you saw really good numbers, 3.7%. And if you look at intellectual property products, and that's where you're going to get, that's where I think you're going to see things like software, like AI technologies, et cetera. Right. You're looking at 7.4% growth. And as you know, Steve, and as you've talked about so much, and you're absolutely right, this is going to be a technological revolution that is really going to increase productivity, and that's going to be great for everybody.
Yeah, it sure is. So what do you say, EJ? Because, when I go out and give talks to people around the country, you do the same. The first question I get asked oftentimes is, people are afraid of AI. They think it's going to play, that say truck drivers may lose their jobs or Uber drivers are going to lose their jobs, or maybe people work in factories as we move towards robotics. And so people are afraid of this, even though it's going to, it'd be like being afraid of the wheel or being afraid of a tractor. But these are going to be, so what do you tell people who say, I'm going to lose my job because of AI?
Well, I would say we have to look at history, Steve. We have to let history be our guide. The problem is not just that AI would eliminate jobs. It's a question of what then happens after that. We've discussed before, and you've had this in the hotline, the Unleash Prosperity hotline, that at one point in this nation, a quarter of our GDP was firewood. And because we discovered coal and then later oil and then finally things like nuclear, the amount of energy we have to get from firewood is so small that it's not even 1/100% of GDP today. It's firewood. But that means that a lot of lumberjacks aren't working anymore. But people have alternatives. And the question is, what are those alternatives going to be? I can't tell you because the future isn't written yet. If I knew the answer to that, I'd be a billionaire. Steve, things like driving for Uber, that didn't exist a quarter century ago or even just 20 years ago. There were no app developers 20 years ago. But today, people are making six figures doing nothing but developing apps for our smartphones. So the very jobs that people are going to have access to in the future haven't even been created yet. We're not sure what those are going to be. And I understand that's scary. I understand that's a lot of uncertainty for people. But if you look at the record of history, it's very, very clear, in my opinion, that people don't simply get left out. Everybody ends up having a job.
Also, people, it's going to be an exciting period. You're a lot younger than I am, EJ, so I'm jealous of you. But, in your lifetime, people will be rising out of wheelchairs and they'll be able to walk. Blind people will see. I mean, the most amazing, every American will be able to afford a castle. We talk about a housing problem now. I mean, because robots will build houses at 1/2 the cost that they cost to build now. So it's exciting, but it's scary at the same time.
Exactly. And, Steve, so often I think we get a little too hyper fixated when these new technologies come along on the fact that they are a replacement, or what we economists like to call a substitute for labor. But they are also a complement to labor, right? So when tractors were introduced to farms, it meant that you didn't need as many farmers. But why is that? Because the individual farmer could operate the tractor. And so his labor was way more productive, which is why he could get paid more. So now for individuals who are using AI, because remember, you're not going to be replaced by AI, you're going to be replaced by a human using AI. For those people using AI, they're going to be so much more productive and they're going to command a higher wage. Again, that's a good thing.
It sure is. So, EJ, just in our last minute and a half, you looked at this GDP report. I'm super bullish about 2026. Are there any indications that we're going to see higher growth in the months to come? I mean, we're already 6 weeks or so into the year 2026, and things seem to be going very well with the inflation numbers, still 7 million job openings in the country. We're seeing a record stock market. How do you see 2026 unfolding?
Well, Steve, I think it's going to be another one of those years of transition, in part because of AI. So again, you'll have that transition within the labor market, people moving around. But at the end of the day, we're already seeing the big productivity numbers. So that's a good thing. It means more future growth. It means more future wealth. We are seeing, like we talked about before, pretty decent numbers when it comes to investment. I would expect things like full expensing from the big, beautiful bill are going to further amp up those investment numbers. So again, it means more growth, more productivity, higher wages, higher standard of living.
One thing on the way out, there's some indication that Trump may, and I'm going to M-A-Y, and I'm going to put that in all caps, suggest something like an extension of the Trump accounts for young people, maybe letting people take some of their Social Security payroll taxes and putting that into a personal account so they can tap into the power of compound interest and become owners.
Oh, absolutely, Steve. Look, and one of the things that I really love about the Trump account idea is the fact that I see these types of accounts, and I think you do too, as eventually being an off-ramp to Social Security. When people see how wildly successful these accounts are when invested in the market, as opposed to just when the government does nothing with the money, essentially, people will see that this is a better way to do it. And again, it can serve as an off-ramp for Social Security. Security. So it's not a matter of taking away anybody's benefits. It's a matter of putting them into a new system, a private system that delivers more benefits. How could anybody be against that?
Yeah, the Wall Street Journal reported that the average worker today will have about $300,000 of benefits from Social Security when they retire. We've calculated that if they had put that money in the market, they wouldn't have $300,000; they'd have $1 million. So they'd do a lot better if they didn't have to put this money in the black hole of Social Security. Well, EJ, you are a great friend and asset. Thanks so much for joining. Folks, when we come back, we'll start taking your calls. This is the More Money Show, the More Money Hotline, 1-800-848-9222. We'll have it a potpourri. You call in, whatever you want to talk about. That's what I'm here for. But I'm not here to deal with your mental health issues, but I'm here to deal with any financial issue you have. If you want to weigh in on the economy, what do you think about the idea of these personal accounts for Social Security? I think it would be wonderful. I know some people get nervous about that. I think it would be great. What do you think about $16 trillion that was stolen by the climate change industrial complex? Folks, we'll be right back. Remember that number for the More Money Hotline, 1-800-848-9222.
Thanks for listening to More Money with Steve Moore. You can hear More Money with Steve Moore Saturday afternoons at 1. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder, what the heck is going on here?
Every week, the Payne family cuts straight to the real financial story.
The one question, Bob, everyone's asking is, are we in an artificial intelligence bubble? You've been through boom and bust. What do you think?
No hype, no myths. Just what actually matters to your money.
Does feel very similar to what we experienced in the 90s. Where are we, though? Are we in 1995, 1997, 1999?
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.